So I always say that the first investment is you. But today I'm going to get very specific. I'm actually going to tell you the actual dollar amount and what it proves. I'm not saying this just to sound good or even preach a philosophy. I'm going to tell you exactly what it cost me to learn this the hard way. By the end of this video, you're going to know the one single number that you need to do to hit before you do actually anything else. Before you hire a coach, before you actually look at real estate, invest in any type of investment, or make a big financial move. Because skipping this one specific number is exactly why everything else crumbles. So let me break it down for you. Not the feeling, but the actual number. Where it goes and what it has to do with everything else I teach. About the timing and the rhythm of your life. The ROI of your investments and how to build wealth. It all rests and sits entirely on this one single decision. And let's get one thing straight right now. I'm definitely not here to shame you into frugality because I'm not frugal. I used to be. But I'm inviting you to step into wealth through self-investment. I did everything they told me to do, and I still lost. The job, the house, the stability. And I blame the market. I blame my choices. I even blame myself. But the truth, I was never taught the first investment. The one that actually comes before the house, before the portfolio, before the business. That's $1,000. And it's not even about the money. It's about what happens in your brain when that number actually sits in your account. The coach I needed is the coach I had to become. My first investment ever was a house, and I lost it. I'm going to tell you the part that nobody tells you before you sign the papers. But before I tell you about the physical house I lost, I need to tell you about the deep patterns of behavior within me that led me losing the house in the first place. So let's go back to where it all started. How did I get there in the first place? It was because of unconscious programming and patterns that were deeply rooted in me, and I had no clue. Because I accepted the teachings of other women around me looking at their money patterns, specifically my mom. My mom was one of those who taught me really to stay broke. Now, she never actually sat me down and taught me anything about money. I learned purely by seeing and watching how she handled her business. What I saw was her example. The bills all laid out in front of her on the table, always stressed. I learned her exact survival mechanism, which was to rob Peter to pay Paul. I learned how to borrow from the future through credit card debt, which practically guarantees you will still be broke, guess what, in the future. The deep, heavy message I absorbed from that was that I wasn't even worthy of learning why I was broke. That was my baseline. It's almost like you grow up with your hands tied behind your back, walking through life, bumbling around, waiting for someone else to do something for you. You don't even realize that you have the power to untie your own hands and help yourself out. That was my money mentality. That was my money behavior that I carried with me. When I thought I was ready to make my first investment back in 2003, and because I was operating with my hands kind of literally tied behind my back, I chose the first investment to be a house. The advice I received at that time was buy the biggest house and the most expensive house that you can afford now, because guess what? You won't be able to afford it later. Well, what could I actually afford at the time? At that time, yeah, your girl here was paying like $700, $750 in rent. And honestly, we were constantly bouncing from one place to another because sometimes we couldn't even consistently pay that rent. That $750 was already the absolute max of what we could maintain. And yet, because the bank approved us for the loan, we thought we could afford it. We went out and found, it was a beautiful house by the way, but we did find the biggest house completely outside of our real price range and purchased it. $180,000 at that time, instead of buying really a modest house for around $70,000. That choice meant a monthly mortgage payment of $1,300 instead of a sustainable $750 payment. It was double what I was currently even able to afford. I completely overinvested beyond what I could actually maintain. And because of that massive overinvestment, I ended up losing the house 3 years later. But the loss of the physical house wasn't even the worst part. It was that the choice that was created on the inside. It triggered a painful 6-year ricochet pattern of deep instability from 2003 to 2009. And it wasn't just the inability of not having a home or instability, but it was the pattern that was created, a profound pattern of fear that bled into my career. I was losing jobs left and right, getting fired over and over again, bouncing from one place to another, completely unable to recover, even pay rent or afford a place to live. Because my credit situation and my track record were entirely shot. If you watch my prior video, Why You're Broke Because You're So Busy, you already know that grueling journey of me actually getting fired and spinning my wheels. See, I had all this natural raw tenacity. I was willing to work myself to the bone. But my tenacity was being completely weaponized against me because the math was fundamentally broken. I was pouring 100% of my energy into trying to keep a sinking $1,300 monthly payment. And instead of having a structurally sound $750 baseline that would give me the mental capacity to actually scale and actually save money, I developed a fear of failure so intense that even when incredible investment opportunities came by along later, guess what? My answer was like, no way, Jose. My immediate default was always going back to that fear that kept reoccurring again and again. The internal chaos was reflecting everywhere in my life, as in is out, as above is below. Now here's what I didn't have, the language. There are 3 things to do this. There's overinvesting, there is underinvesting, and just investing. Like I just showed you, I overinvested in that house and that cost me my stability. Underinvesting, on the other hand, keeps you stuck in the same place because you're too afraid to move at all. And that's what I ended up doing for years and years afterwards. I underinvested in myself because of that initial overinvestment. I was afraid to accept opportunities. I was afraid to say yes to life because of my fear. Then there's just investing, the simple foundational steps when you just basically take back your life and you have your own back. So what would have happened if instead of over-investing in a house that I couldn't afford, I had invested $150, the cost of a coach for 1 hour's time? A coach would have cost me, $150, but most importantly, a very different perspective, which is what I needed. That coach would have looked at my track record and coached me through my own reasoning. She would have asked me, why do you want to get into this massive house right now? What is your actual pattern? She would have helped me see that if I already had a pattern of bouncing around and not being able to afford rent, a bigger house wasn't going to solve my problem. And long term, I probably wouldn't be able to maintain or keep that home, which actually that's exactly what happened. I could have spent $150 for one coach instead of losing 20 years of time bumbling around through the consequences. But none of that really matters until you understand this one thing. As within, as without, as above, as below, you are the first investment. It is never real estate first. It's not stocks. It's not starting your friend's business. You are the asset that produces every single thing in your life. And why is a coach a powerful investment? Because a coach will always see you as the best investment. That is literally her job. Think about Rocky Balboa. Rocky didn't become Rocky by bumbling around self-training or doing training on his own. He actually had a coach, a trainer who pushed him, who saw his potential, who saw his greatness when he couldn't see it for himself. But yet that trainer taught him how to improve. Do you think that Rocky would have become The Rock without his trainer? I don't think so. That's what we all need. You need someone to believe in you and then teach you to believe in yourself. Okay, so you're the best first asset. What does that actually look like in your bank account? What is this first investment? It is having exactly $1,000 cash saved in an interest-bearing account that you do not touch. If you have never saved $1,000 before in your life, I invite you to listen very closely. Before you go off paying any debt off, I mean, you do want to pay your reoccurring monthly expenses, let me make that clear. But before you actually try to pay debt off or invest in any stock or in anything else, before you even hire a coach, you need to put $1,000 into an interest-bearing banking account and never touch it unless you have an emergency. Now, what constitutes an emergency? You going out to party and needing new clothes is not an emergency. An emergency is, let's say your car breaks down and you have to pull out $500. You use that money and then your only mission is to replace it and put that money back before you do anything else. Now, how is this locked away version of money an investment? Traditional financial gurus might say it's just sitting there idly, but it is an investment because it completely changes your internal security in yourself and your relationship with money. If you have no air in your tires, honey, your car is not going anywhere. This $1,000 is the air in your tires. It's the cushion that ensures you have your own back. When you do this first, you are proving to your brain that you're number one in your own priority list. It builds this psychological foundation and the baseline confidence that you can protect yourself on any rainy day. It makes you open and willing to invest in yourself again and again. If you've never dropped a dime on yourself, honey, to create safety, you are never going to have the courage to drop $100, $500, or $700 on a bigger opportunity later. You have to start here. Now, I know what you're thinking. Does this actually work? Let me prove it to you. I'm going to show you how it pays off. The moment I broke the cycle, secured the first $1,000, and gave myself permission to put myself first, everything shifted. From there, it became easy to take the next step, which was building a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. When I built that, the next step for me was holding $20,000 in the bank, which was completely unheard of for Diana at this time. It felt like a mountain of money, but I kept my focus there, and that $20,000 eventually compounded and grew into $100,000. And today in 2026, when you look at my bank account, I went from struggling to holding on to $1,000 to having $500,000 that I created. That is the literal compounding dollar return of investment ROI of making that first shift. This stuff isn't symbolic or abstract. When you invest in yourself, your decisions literally start self-automating in your favor without you even realizing it. And look at how the timeline completely flips when you do this. From 2003 to 2009, I was completely trapped in that painful, chaotic cycle of instability. 6 years of bumbling in the dark, but in 2009, I found Dave Ramsey and Robert Kiyosaki, and I started studying finances deeply. I learned how to stop being broke, how to face my debt, and how to look good for the banks. I put that first $1,000 in the bank and finally built that rock-solid stability and internal confidence. Look at what was able to change in just one single year. Because I did that internal and foundational work in 2009, I was fully prepared when opportunity came knocking at my door, literally. And remember, people get it wrong when they say that preparation leads to opportunity. It doesn't happen like that. Opportunity requires preparation. 1 year later in 2010, I wasn't even looking for an investment property. Literally, my landlord, Jim, came knocking on my door and asked me directly if I wanted to purchase the fourplex that I was living in because I had spent that year fixing my foundation and saving. Guess what? I was ready. I was able to confidently say yes, even though I was actually scared, but I did buy the property. 1 single year of self-investment completely shattered a 6-year cycle of failure. So you may be asking, how is this completely possible? How does someone go from struggling to holding $1,000 to having $500,000 in the bank? What does this look like in real life, in real time? It started with that $1,000 foundation, which unlocked that first building from Jim in 2010. At that time, I was working for myself, cleaning houses, which I started doing back in 2005, 2006. So I was running my business while managing this property that I had just invested in, basically created a job for myself that was an asset at the exact same time. From there, I took the next leap. I reinvested money back into my business to completely remodel all the units in that building. I changed the entire asset model to drive up the rental income and maximize cash flow. That move created the ultimate, really, time wheel and freedom of ROI. I automated the business model so that I only had to work, 1.5 hours a week. That structural investment allowed me to pack up and move overseas, travel to Europe, play, and do volunteer work. But let's be real for a second. You think buying a physical building is scary? Real estate is easy because it's a brick and mortar asset that you don't touch. Let me tell you the investment step that actually terrified me. To cross the bridge from $100,000 to $500,000, I had to stop investing in systems and start investing in me. I decided it was time to invest heavily into my own coaching. I dropped $18,000 cold hard cash for my advanced coaching certification. I spent $5,000 out of pocket to be individually coached by Brooke Castillo for just 1 single day. I invested in her monthly coaching program at $297 a month consistently for over 2 years, and then paid another $5,000 for her reinvention experience. Spending that kind of money would have been completely unheard of for me at one point in my life. But making that investment taught me the most moving, profound lesson of all. It proved to me that I am a person worth investing in. It built the exact identity, confidence, and internal standard required to create $500,000. And really the ultimate lesson that it taught me when I really asked myself, did I really need to spend $18,000 on a certification? The answer was yes. Even though today the person I am would say no, but I wouldn't be the person today if I had not spent that $18,000. But what it really taught me that I considered myself so important that I would invest in myself education, and understanding that, I understood I really didn't need any further additional coaching. Let's just say that that chapter and that period of self-investing for me was over. So the long game is the $1,000 to $20,000 to $100,000 to $500,000. But if you're sitting here right now and you're like, I just need a quick fix, like just a quick shift, immediate shift into my own reality, girl, get yourself a haircut, change your hair, and first of all, do it right. If you want to shift your life before you even save $1,000, a proper haircut is one of the most powerful, innovative, and immediate investments that you can make. Why? Because your style is a direct physical manifestation of your internal investments. It is not empty vanity, and it is not a treat. It is the literal receipt for the work you are doing on the inside. A phenomenal hairdresser accentuates your features and instantly makes you look and feel like $1,000,000. And that does not come at a cheap price, people. The external shift gives you the immediate injection of confidence required to start taking entirely different actions and making completely different financial choices. And look, if you're completely strapped and budget conscious right now, don't use this as an excuse. There's always another way. Do what I used to do when I was broke. I would just go to the local beauty schools. It costs a mere fraction of the price. You can find brilliant student talent and you can just follow them once they graduate. If you see a woman walking down the street with a fabulous haircut and you love her hair color, make sure, first of all, that you make sure that the texture matches your texture. If you have curly hair, do not ask someone with straight hair for a recommendation. Like, you need to find someone with curly hair to give you the recommendation that you are looking for. But if you do like the color and if you do like the cut, then by all means, ask that person, hey, who does your hair? And then please do some research on the texture of your hair. You want to make sure that the person that's cutting your hair actually knows how to cut the type of hair that you have. Now, really quick, you might be thinking, a haircut shopping, isn't that just treating yourself? Oh girl, no. Let me tell you the exact difference between investing in yourself and just treating yourself. In reality check, I will always hold everyone accountable here because women have been completely lied to. We've been sold a version of self-care that is nothing but bubble baths and $7 lattes. And that is why your ass is fat. Here's the hard line. Investing in yourself means taking a fundamentally different decision when you are confronted with the exact same reoccurring pattern you've been trying to overcome. Treating yourself is just an escape. It is a temporary distraction designed to make you feel good for a minute, only for you to return right back to the exact same problem. And trust me, it's not going to go anywhere, guaranteeing the exact same broke result. Let me give you a raw example from my own life. There was a period in my life where I was taught that investing in yourself was really like buying all these quick little fix, really cheap internet courses. They were like $19.99 and, really very low entry level points, promising instant gratification. I would buy them, watch them, feel productive for a split second, but they were just really distractions. I was looking for a quick fix or a quick solution instead of actually building a real tool I had to work with. I was treating myself really to momentary distraction with courses, books, YouTube, videos, instead of really actually doing the hard structural work. My other massive treat, default, outside of self-improvement was food. Whenever I worked a long, grueling day and felt exhausted, guess what? My brain's like, woohoo, it's time to treat yourself. We deserve it. Kind of that short-term comfort. Of course, I worked hard, I was tired, and so, why not? Go get some food. That overeating was my emotional coping mechanism. I'd smash carbohydrates for a quick fix and feel absolutely terribly later with gas, actually. Side note. And return right back to the exact same stressful pattern of financial reality. Those courses and really cheap, immediate, instant gratifications and even food, those were just treats and it changed nothing. When you are stuck in the cycle of constantly treating yourself to escape your reality, your brain builds up a massive defensive wall. You look at everyone else and who has broken free, instead of seeing them as an actual blueprint of success, you see them as an exception. You automatically assume that they have some sort of head start that you don't. And before you watch all of this and tell me, yeah, I've heard all of this before, Diana, it's easy for you to say, you clearly have money and whatever, you're just telling me something right now. You're completely right, I am telling you something, but it is nice to have money, by the way, and it is very amazing to be able to fly down to Colombia, shop independent creators, and drop down cash on beautiful wardrobes in my creative YouTube studio. It feels absolutely incredible, as you can tell. I look very fabulous, and I did buy this hat in Italy, by the way. Florence is my favorite hotspot. Back to the subject at hand, but I do want you to understand something very important here. That there was actually a very long and dark period in my life where I was completely broke, bankrupt, jobless, and literally about to be evicted from my home. I'm not talking to you from a pedestal. I'm talking to you from a place of reality. I know exactly what it is that I'm talking about because I've been in the same place. I've been in that frozen state of panic. So if you're a woman in your 20s and 30s right now thinking, I simply do not make enough money to invest in myself, listen, I hear you loud and clear. In 2026, you are under massive pressure. You have rent, you have inflation, you have groceries, you have an endless list of things filling up your bank account. Making self-investment decisions feels completely impossible or irresponsible. But look at how you manage that list. Everyone and everything else gets paid first, and you're not even on that grocery list. You will never actually show up on your own list until you decide to put yourself on there. So with all of that being said, here's what I actually want you to walk away with today. Investing in yourself equals financial freedom because real freedom does not come from anyone else but you. You are always and will always be first class, first asset. Not real estate, not stocks, you. You are the money-making machine that produces everything of value in your life. So if you don't have that first $1,000 saved yet, do it right now. Put your blinders on, put that $1,000 in the bank and lock it away. You need to take the steps required to really have your own back and to build stability, to prove to yourself that you are worthy of having your own back. And you're going to see how that single action will compound and stabilize your life in a way that it has probably never been stabilized. And you will completely transform your internal sense of self-worth. And if you're wondering how your self-worth turns into your net worth, tune into the next video because I'm going to tell you exactly how. See you there. Coaching from the heart, Diana.